Modal verbs of obligation. Master your duties and responsibilities in English. Hello, English learners. Today, we're going to delve into a fascinating aspect of the English language: modal verbs for obligation. This is an essential part of English grammar that will help you express duties, responsibilities, and necessities more naturally and accurately. So, let's get started. Modal verbs for obligation are a subset of modal verbs that indicate a requirement or necessity. They're like the salt and pepper of English language. They add flavor and clarity to your sentences. The most common modal verbs of obligation are must, have to, need to, and should. Must is used when the obligation comes from the speaker themselves, expressing a personal conviction or necessity. For example, I must finish this report today. Have to is used when the obligation comes from an external source or rule. For example, we have to wear uniforms at school. Need to also expresses obligation or necessity, similar to have to. For example, you need to study hard for the exam. Should is a bit lighter than the others. It's used for advice or recommendations, but not for strong obligations. For example, you should drink more water. Now that you know what these verbs are, let's see how we use them in sentences. For must, the structure is subject plus must plus base verb. For example, you must respect the rules. For have to, the structure is subject plus have to plus base verb. For example, I have to go now. For need to, the structure is subject plus need to plus base verb. For example, we need to arrive early. For should, the structure is subject plus should plus base verb. For example, they should apologize. Notice how the verb that follows these modal verbs is always in the base form. The negative and question forms of these verbs are also vital to learn. For negative statements, we use mustn't for prohibition, don't have to for lack of necessity, and shouldn't for advice against something. For example, you mustn't cheat on the test, you don't have to pay for me, and you shouldn't stay up late. For questions, we invert the subject and the verb, like, must I do it now? Or, do I have to do it now? But remember, should questions are more like seeking advice. For example, should I take the bus? And that's a wrap on modal verbs for obligation. Remember, the key to mastering these is practice. Try using these verbs in your everyday English conversations and writings. We hope this lesson has been helpful, and remember, English learning is a journey, not a race. Keep going, and you'll get there. See you in our next lesson.